Hey there everybody, welcome back to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. I have now gone in and basically took my vacuum. I have these little attachments. They're designed to work with a shop vac, but the other brands of vacuums may have these as well. Anyway, it comes with a little adapter, and these I think I've shown these in one of my tools video. Originally designed to clean computer keyboards, but I use it for my car on the inside. I'm trying to get in little difficult to access areas, and I find it's a very helpful for sewing machines. So again, make sure your machine is unplugged when you're doing this. So now I've cleaned all that dust off, so the motor will not have to work a little extra hard to get cleaned. Now, one thing I can also do is go in, and if I need to, I can take a cotton swab. I don't really see much that I've missed here, to be honest. I think I've gotten it all. You know, again, we're not polishing the motor. We're just making sure we get any of the heavy dust off that would you know, allow the machine to theoretically build up more heat. Maybe it won't. You know, maybe it's just maybe I'm being overly cautious, but you know, when you're dealing with sewing machines, anything vintage, you want to take the best care that you can with it. Going down in the base here underneath the motor. So again, I've been able to clean the commutator. I've been able to check and inspect, clean my motor brushes. And I'm just coming down into the bottom here. Any goop that's down here in the base. This is not aesthetic cleaning. This is just something I can reach here, and I thought I would go ahead and get while I was in there. That's all we need to do with that. But what I'm going to do now is, rather than bump into the tripod, I want to turn your attention to the side, because we want to take off this side panel, and it is held on with these two screws. And basically, it should not be that difficult. This is one of the few areas where, at least in this generation Bernina, we should be able to get off fairly simply. These screws may have been on here. This may be it may never have been removed before. Boy, having to fight with this one. This is a situation where you really want to use your things like these screwdriver tips that are not tapered. So you're a lot less likely to strip a screw. You really don't want to do that on any machine, especially a Bernina. So here we go. We'll just get them a little more loose. Now remember, depending on the machine you're working on, you want to hold the panel. This one may be fine, but you never know. You don't want a thing just flopping off onto the floor or in your lap or God knows where. So, and of course you also don't want your screws to go rolling around. That would not be fun. So just keep all of this in mind as you're going through. Notice I've gotten them loose. I'm going to do the rest by hand. There's one. And when you do this, you also need to be careful to ensure that it can come off, because I'm noticing this knob notice when I loosen this, you know, I don't know, one thing I could do, so I'm turning this to see, I believe I can take this knob. I'm actually turning the control on it. And this here came free. And of course we actually have this little knob that we want to be careful of. And I've actually gotten it loose enough. It actually screws right into here. So, but it's still in there, right? So that's fine, and it just slipped down. Sometimes with some machines you'll have to take the hand wheel off, but we don't in this situation. But I wanted you guys to see this. Now, this is an area that typically does not really require oiling. I don't see any red paint, but that doesn't mean we don't need to check on some of these things that may be overdue. For example, I can see an area here I'd like to, I could probably take the bottom plate off to get to here, but I can also get to this spot right here. But you can see we've got some dust. This is over a lifetime, right? We got some dust built up. So I'll take the vacuum to that as well. It's not going to take 10 seconds to do. But then I see some dust. By the way, I'm also seeing occasionally you're going to get thread tails. They find their way everywhere. Remember what I've said to you guys before, when you've got a machine and you're not sure why it's not operating correctly. In addition to your shuttle and bobbin case area, you will also find little pieces of thread that break and they get caught and trapped, often in hand wheel areas. So you want to be extra aware of that. Just be looking for them, take a flashlight and pull them out. It's just a good idea to do that. And now you can see, I angle my camera for you, you can see here, guys, the little rod, the steel rod that this is where the knee controller will lock into. It's very easy to install. And then you can see the rod that goes all the way here. And of course, it's when you engage this with the rod, it causes this piece to move, which of course engages your speed control. And if you were to look on the inside of any many of the Singer button carbon pile speed controllers, they look like this. They have a porcelain housing and the little carbon discs are down in there. This is basically a foot control without the foot pedal. It's just, it works off the same principle. And again, you would have had the option. Now you'll notice here with this piece, I want to be able to, now I can get, if I maybe change my angle here a little bit, and maybe you guys can see this, but now I want you to see one of the reasons you have to sort of take panels off. Remember we were talking about those knobs and buttons that get stuck? Well, look here. There is a green button. I wonder if it shows up on here. Now this is the stitch length control. Here, you guys see this button right here. Okay, well right behind it is metal. And that metal, give me my little pointer here. Got to lower the camera a little bit. Sorry, but there's certain angles where we need to be so you guys can see what I'm pointing towards. But the metal behind that little knob is sitting right here. Right there. And so I'm going to get behind there with, I may use penetrant or I may use sewing machine oil. It depends on how stuck it is. And I really want, let me get it lower than that. It's still not a fan of that angle for you guys. Let's see, that's better. So I'm going to get my penetrant, cleaners, alcohol, and or oil, and I'm going to work this back here. And I'm doing this so that this button, it moves a little bit, but I want it to move smoothly. It's going to have some tension. It was designed to have tension, but that's what I'm hoping to accomplish. We'll get the dust out. That'll be fairly fast with the vacuum. But then I want to go back behind here and make sure that any of this plastic has lubrication on the metal parts behind them. Because remember, I've mentioned a number of times that's how you often break plastic levers or dials or buttons on a vintage sewing machine. It's not the plastic's fault. It's because there's steel behind it, and that steel has gotten very stuck, and people force it, unfortunately. But the other thing I wanted to show you all are these belts. This says Continental. Continental is a German tire company or a tire brand, and they apparently used to make, maybe they still do, fan belts, motor belts, and these are belts, and I'm checking them. They're not dry rotted. They actually are in remarkable shape. The Bernina belts are some of the longest lasting belts I've ever seen. Nothing lasts forever, but these are incredible. But here's the main thing I want you to see, which is how these belts are arranged. People often say, well, there are different ways to get sewing machine motor power. One of the ways is to simply have a very high amp motor. Some of the Japanese clone machines had 1.5 amps. The White Company had 1.3 amps, and the Kenmore's 1.2, all of which are very powerful. Now, Bernina's, let's see, I think we are dealing with, yeah, I'll show you guys, you can see it right here. It says 1.05 amps. That's a pretty strong motor. But one of the secrets to Bernina's having great piercing power is this. Because Bernina's of this generation, and I suspect even the current ones may still be this way, but I can't guarantee that. They have two belts, not one. And you say, well, why? Well, here's the here's the pulley on the motor. Here's the hand wheel, and remember, hand wheel is really a big pulley when you get right down to it. So here's the hand wheel as a pulley, and it's got a belt that's going to a small pulley. That's called it's basically a two-pulley system, okay? And what this allows for is it allows for the transfer of torque in a motor to have the most effect. You're not really, the power of the motor, it is what it is. You're not going to magically increase the amperage. But the way the power from the motor is used to deliver power at the needle is what's the word I'm looking for? Amplified by this system. Now, it's not the only way to get strong sewing machines. In fact, most sewing machines don't have this setup. So I'm not saying that if you don't have this, you don't have a strong sewing machine. Don't misinterpret that. I'm saying there are many ways to get strong sewing power, and Bernina chose this design. At some point in the 70s, the Sears company was looking to, they could not carry Berninas in their stores. Bernina would not let Sears carry them, and so, because they went through independent dealers. And so what did Sears do? Well, they went to the company that was making their machines in Japan at the time, which was called Marusan, and they had them develop a machine design that you guys may know as the 158-1900 series. There's 1940, 1941, 1942, and a few others. Actually, there are quite a few, not just the Freearm models, but there are quite a few Marusan-made Kenmores from the 1970s that have this feature. Some of those Kenmores have what they called super high shank feet, which only could be gotten from Sears, and they would, and some of those machines would only use those feet. Well, Bernina has their own feet, and I believe that Sears had the Japanese copy the double belt system. And those, any of you who have those Kenmores know what incredible machines they are. I find them a little easier to work on than Bernina's actually, but and they're some of the last of the great all-metal machines. But Bernina got there first. Bernina was the first one to use this system. Some companies like Singer, the weight of their drive shafts and drivetrain components was so heavy, the weight of their hand wheels, they were able to accomplish powerful sewing using heavy, what essentially are heavy pulleys and flywheels. Because Singer motors from the vintage era are not all that, they're not the highest amperage, and yet they are incredibly strong. Some companies, as I mentioned, used very high amperage motors to just strong arm the needle and get it to go through thick fabric. And again, Bernina and some of the Kenmores chose this method. So there are many ways to get a strong sewing machine. This is just one of them, and this is what Bernina chose, and it really helped establish Bernina's reputation as a really strong sewing machine. And I believe it's not just the motor, which is a great motor, but it's this setup that really helps the Bernina to do what it does, which is it can sew through a lot of stuff. All machines have their limits, and you never want to push past them. But any of you who have these vintage Berninas will tell, I've heard you, many of you say, wow, these are really strong sewing machines. And I think you're just looking at, if you've never seen the inside of one, this is what it looks like. You've got two belts, hand wheel as a pulley. The belt connects down to a smaller, this pulley, which is actually smaller in circumference on the back side. You can't see that. And then this belt connects to this, the larger diameter pulley. And then it connects, of course, to the little pulley on the motor. Lots of pulleys going on, pulleys and belts. But this is a really good illustration of what makes Berninas such strong sewing machines. Anyway, just thought I would show this to you guys. And just like I did with the motor, I am going to very quickly, I'll take the vacuum and I will go in here with my little attachments. You can see here, I'm not going to, like I say, I'm not going to put you guys through listening to it, but you can see with these small attachments originally designed for computers, I can get in here. You know, I have different ones, I have one with an angle, excuse me, and a little wider. I've got this one, which is like a little slotted piece. Anyway, the point is I can get in here and quickly get this dust out. Anything that's remaining, I'll go in with a cotton swab, but I really like using this vacuum. Is going to really help just save so much time. But anyway, just thought I would show this to you guys. A little secret to Bernina's legend. And I think one of the key reasons why, in addition to the great engineering and beautiful machining, this is one of the things that makes Bernina's so awesome. If you have a Bernina and you think it's awesome, feel free to share there in the comments why you like yours and maybe some of the things you're able to do with it. Anyway, hang in there. I'm working my way around this wonderful old Bernina, and hopefully we will have it ready soon for testing. And